Well, welcome to another interview segment of Reunion Roadmap. This is Al McCarn, and with me all the way from Katzrin, Israel, in the Golan, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz of Israel 365. Eliyahu, welcome to the show.
Thank God. Thank you. Okay.
Now, we have the honor today of talking about your third book, your second novel, Master of the Return and the 11th Light. What a great book. I am
you read it?
Yes, I did. I read it. I also read your first novel, The Hope Merchant.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't read your second book yet.
Okay. Okay.
But I can tell you that The Hope Merchant, it's a different kind of fiction, a different kind of novel. And, I remember when you first published it, you described one chapter as the only Jewish chapter in the book. And
did I?
You did. That may have been a
conversation. Right. I remember now. Yeah, sure. I mean, I wrote it like 20 years ago. So
yes. Yeah, and I was reading it.
You're right. You're right. It was the 36 the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, the 36 holy men that keep the world going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That gave me such a great insight into the Jewish world, the Jewish view of creation, of the God of creation, of how we relate to him. So before we get to talk about the Master of Return, I want to give a plug for The Hope Merchant, which is another one. It's a soul-stirring novel.
Thank God.
On a deep level.
Thank God. It came from a very special place. And it's kind of funny. People ask me what kind of writing it is. It's not explicitly, overtly, blatantly religious, but there's no question that it comes from a God perspective. A perspective that we're not just flesh and blood, that we're not just, I was getting bored with regular novels. There's genres and it's all about something material or some, maybe you're talking about politics, but how often do you get to read about people who are fighting for their soul, who are fighting for a deeper meaning to their everyday existence? There aren't too many that maybe they'll different pretenses to that, but to say, look, my life isn't working, I need soul. There aren't really too many, I think. So that's what it's about.
I would say Master of Return carries that forward.
Yeah. Master of Return, though, it has an overt agenda, which is, I'll tell you a story. There's a lovely woman, her name is Kay Wilson. Kay Wilson lives in Israel. She's originally British. She survived a horrific terror attack. She was stabbed a bunch of times. Her friend who was with her, she saw her die in front of her eyes. And she wrote an amazing book called A Rage Less Traveled. It's really, I highly recommend it. I got it. She said, please read it. Let me know what you think. And that's kind of loaded because, you have a dear friend. They wrote a book, and if you read it, what if it's horrible? What are you going to tell them? But I was so pleased that I could tell her it was wonderful. It was a wonderfully written book, and it touched on a little bit on the terrorist attack, but most of it was about healing from the attack and the after effects and how deeply it changed her. And it was wonderfully written. She got an amazing, one of the most, if not the most prominent literary agent in Israel. And they said, this is amazing. We're going to get you 6 figures advance. Well, it'll be a year later, no publisher would touch it. And they unabashedly said to her, look, we're not going to publish a book about Jews suffering from Palestinian terrorist attacks, but anything you have about Palestinian suffering under the occupation we'll publish. And I realized that not only in the news, which is, so frequently it's a lie. It's not even a good lie. It's a lie that doesn't make sense. But the arts are so slanted and so prejudiced, and that people, it's a shame. And I said, I got to do something about that. So I figured I'd write a novel, something that's enjoyable to read, something that's pretty much true to life. There's actually only one section, one short segment of the book that I made up out of whole cloth. Everything else is at least based in truth, if not pretty much telling it straight up. Because people have to know. They really need to know. And it's not about politics. It's all about the Jews are back in Israel. Not a single Jew lives in Israel for politics. Not a single Jew lives in Israel because we want to steal land or something like that. Every single Jew in Israel is here on some level because we want to get close to God. We want to live the covenant. We want to live where God told us to live. And that's why we're here. Even the non-religious Jews. And that's why they're killing us. And that's why so many political agendas are anti-Israel, not because we're anything special, but they can't have it. They can't have the blatant manifestation of the covenant in their face.
Mm-hmm.
It just requires too much of them. So they hate us, and they have this agenda, and it's not politics. So I needed to get that message out there. And it wasn't getting out there. So that's why I wrote it.
That's one level of the value of your novel. Because I know from your story, you live now in Katzrin in the Golan Heights, just a few miles from the Syrian border. Before that, you lived in Judea and Samaria.
I lived in Bad Ayin in Gush Etzion. Yeah. It's in
So you and your family are among those Jewish settlers in the West Bank.
Yeah, I had to show when I went into my work the other day, I had to show them my Teudat Zahut because that was taken, the picture in my ID. Teudat Zahut is an ID card. Picture in my ID card was taken when I lived there, and it had the big long fluffy payas and the beard down it. Of course the beard was not white. But I was one of those guys running around in the hilltops with jeans and the big floppy tzitzit with the blue thread, and that was. I mean, I still have a big kippah, relatively speaking, but I lived that way for 15 years, and it had a deep. And it's just really amazing people. I wrote this book, but I'm so simple compared to some of the people I really merited to meet. There's amazing people there. So,
yeah, and we see some of these. We meet some of them in the novel.
Yeah, and they're real people. Sometimes I didn't even change the names, so I hope I don't get into too much trouble. But you could be walking like into Bad Ayin and say, "Yaki, are you Yaki?" And yeah. Oh, Yaki, I read about you, and he'll go nuts. But Yaki's an amazing man. I couldn't change his name.
Well, I liked him. He's one of those remarkable characters.
Yeah, he is.
But here's another part of the value of your book is you are putting names and faces and real human stories to these people we just read about on the headlines labeled Jewish settlers.
Right. That's usually. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yes.
So I guess I did at least some of my job, because that's very true. And it's funny. I every time guys from Bad Ayin would bring their families, they'd look weird. They'd be like, "Oh, who are these people?" And okay, we look weird, but I used to be a biker. I used to have long hair. I have a tattoo. The earrings. You go through stages. Or at least I did. And one stage, I looked like a settler. But if you cut off the payas and you cut off the beard, or if you look past them, we're really not that different, except maybe we're working a little bit harder to connect to God. I mean, when I look back on some of the things I did, I don't know how I did it. Mm-hmm. I write about jumping into the ice cold springs at 5 a.m. I hate cold water, man. I really hate cold water. And I'll tell you something. I'm struggling now through trying to read through the New Testament. And when I read about baptism, I'm like, I've done that, And you'll see the heavens split up above you. It's like it's a real experience, It's ice cold spring at 5 a.m. Woo! It'll change your world. It'll definitely rock your world. So that's what we were doing, trying to serve God.
Well, yes. So there's that part, and sure enough, we see differences of the physical differences of your appearance.
Yeah.
And I could say that about Christians I know, Amish and Mennonites and others in the Hebrew Roots movement. the obstacle a lot of people have is pushing through the difference of appearance and getting to know the person.
Yeah.
So you've done that in Master of the Return.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, when I'm reading about you and your friend Kalman in jumping into the icy spring, and I'm also reading about the inner turmoil and decision issues that you're facing and everybody's personal lives, and also dealing with government and taxes and all of that. You know, an astute reader or one who has just a little bit of paying attention will realize these are real people dealing with the same issues that I have to deal with, even though they're doing it in a setting that's foreign to me, and they look different from me. So you're humanizing these Jewish pioneers. That's a beautiful thing in this novel.
One of the last things I changed about the book before I decided, okay, I can play with it forever, but I got to publish it at some time. The last thing I changed was someone said to me, look, you introduce your wife. She's obviously a major player, a major character. Go into that relationship. And that's kind of, it's a little uncomfortable. There were some elements of truth, but I'm not going to reveal my personal relationship with my wife. But that's something I think that a lot of people struggle with. You'd think religious people, it's all, it's funny. The title of the book, Master of Return, is a translation of the term Baal Tshuva. Baal Tshuva is the Hebrew expression to describe someone who becomes religious and who was not. And it literally means the master of the answer. Tshuva means answer, and it also means return. And secular, they have this thing of like, oh, you think you have all the answers. And I'm like, oh, no. As soon as that's when the big questions really kick in. When you decide to connect to God, the big questions. That's the big questions. And you're looking for bigger answers. It's like, a non-religious father, his 16-year-old son is acting up. Buy him a car. That's not my answer anymore. I have to go really deeper because I'm not concerned about him being happy. I'm concerned about his soul, about his neshama, so I have to dig deeper. So so you have to look on the inside. And I think, when we sit down and talk, you and I, we have a lot of the same concerns. What we call shalom bayit, or peace in the house, raising our kids. And it's all circulating around our relationship with God.
Yes.
So I think you do get to know the people because there are real people, and these are their concerns.
Yeah, real concerns about this journey toward God, about their relationship with Him, and this is a point of connection between Jews and Christians, because Christians who are on this same journey, a parallel journey perhaps, are seeing in your Jewish story that there are many common elements. My prayer is that we could just have more of this, recognizing and building on these common elements we have in our relationship with the Almighty, rather than focusing on the differences.
How much of that do you think is of that commonality do you think is a product of where we are in history? Because we're in a very unique space.
Yes.
And more commonalities. I mean, on even not the deep commonalities, but just things like, silly politics, or not so silly politics. We're pretty close, and it's like everything is becoming polarized. Yes. So I'm finding more and more people standing on this little island with me who are Christian.
What a great way to put it, this little island.
Yeah, the world's going crazy around us, and we look at each other and we're like, I'm here with you, dude. What am I going to do,
Yeah, and to answer your question, I'd say a huge part of it has to do with where we are in history.
Yeah. History is a thing. It does happen.
Mm-hmm. 100 years ago, 120 years ago, there were some Christians who were paying attention to the beginnings of the Zionist movement. Zionist in the sense that I'm meaning of Jews are understanding who they are and whose they are, and the promises of God to return Israel to the land, the promised land, and restore his land, his nation, his people, and his city and his temple. Jews are taking this seriously. And some Christians are seeing that and taking it serious as well. So it's a process that's been going on for, I guess, close to 2 centuries now. But we have crossed another threshold, I think.
Absolutely.
1948 was one with the rebirth of Israel. 1967 was another. Israel regains the Holy Temple Mount. Where are we now? 50 years after that, 74 years after the rebirth of Israel. And a whole lot of time that the Christian world is, and you even mentioned this in the Master Return. The Christian world is beginning to see our replacement theology of the previous 1900 years, in which the church replaces Israel and Jewish people. No, that's not right. God's still got something he's doing with the Jewish people, with the nation of Israel. Christians are bound up in it somehow. So there are folks who are on this little island where you and I are standing from both sides who are saying, we probably aren't going to figure this out by ourselves. We need to reach across the divide.
And that's, when you talk about building bridges, when you build a bridge, first of all, you've got to start from both sides. It's an arch. And there's a verse. Oh gosh, I'm not so good at knowing where I get my verses from. In Hebrew, it's Even Masu Avonim Hayta Lerosh Pina. The stone that the builders despised was used as the keystone. And the keystone is like this, it's got crazy shaped rock. You can't use it for anything. It's no good for anything. It's not square, it's not straight, but that's what makes it able to connect to everything. And those are the people who are finding themselves standing in this very, they're standing in open air saying, what am I going to do? If I take another step, I'm going to fall. And they take the other step anyway. And I think that's, Christians, they're like, what am I going to do? Am I going to leave behind my church? Am I going to go out into a place that the church doesn't agree with? And you have Jews saying, wait a second, can we connect to Christians for 2,000 years? They've been horrible to us. What are we going to do? And you got to take that step. You got to become the one who's despised by everyone. You got to become the oddball. Yeah. And then you can connect the two sides. So
we're definitely oddballs.
Yeah, we are definitely oddballs. We're the weirdos.
So this gets to a point of the novel that I wanted to ask about, because you go in there with a wonderful fictionalized account of Israel 365 and how you came to work for them. And I'm recognizing in there other people I know, like Tuli Weiss.
You better. And the editor was Rivka Adler.
Yes, Rivka Adler. People I love. They are awesome folks. They have great vision, depth of knowledge. Okay, from your account, what is the purpose of this Israel 365 organization, and why?
Okay, I'm very blessed to work for an amazing man. In the book, I think I call him Sefi.
Yes.
And Rabbi Tuli Weiss, he hired me 6 years ago. And my motivation was I really needed a job. And I don't know what he saw in me, but he gave me a chance to work. And it was pretty much like I described it. I was trying out. I was last man standing. He's an incredible man of vision. He really, really is. And I can't figure it out because he's comes from such a mainstream background, but he's always three steps ahead. He was the one that told me to start learning New Testament. And he's totally mainstream Jewish. And at first I'm like, so Ali, am I gone somewhere really? And yeah, but it's proved hugely helpful. He had this vision that Jews have to connect with Christians. What was the question? What's the purpose of it?
Yeah.
What's the
Israel 365, the vision, the purpose. Yeah.
I was very blessed to speak to Rav Yechiel Eckstein before he passed away of the fellowship. And the fellowship, God bless them, they raise like $30 million a year for Israel. And I was talking to him and it sounded really weird. At one point, I'm like, Rav Eckstein, it doesn't sound like you're out in it for the money. And he said, I'm not. He said, the only way I could connect with these people was if I asked them for money. So I asked them for money. The money was secondary. The primary thing was to connect them. So it's really all about the connection. It's all about the connection on so many levels. And it's a big shift for me as a Jew, because as a Jew, there's so many Jews who are working on connecting with Jews outside of Israel. I have zero interest in connecting with Jews from Israel. Really, not anymore. And it's very painful for me to say that. And I'm sure I'll get a lot of criticism for it. But we're at the point where there's no reason not to come to Israel. Quality of life, jobs, everything, security. Israel's pretty secure. There's no reason for them not to be here already. And I'm not going to preach to someone who doesn't want to hear it. And I call it getting Psalm 126. I call it getting 126. Psalm 126. Then the nations will say how wonderful it is what God did for you. And that's precisely what's happening. When I have Christians coming up to me saying, look at this Israel thing. Isn't that amazing? And I'm just like, wow, you see it too? You know, and the Jews in America, they don't say that anymore. There are very few of them, and that's painful. But this is, I think, the next stage of the ingathering of the exiles. Most Orthodox Jews think that the ingathering of the exiles is Orthodox Jews buying plane tickets. But what we're seeing is far more miraculous. We're seeing the Jews coming from the far corners of the earth that didn't even know they were Jewish or had been lost for so long. Every time I write about, we call them anusim, the forcibly converted Jews from Spain and Portugal. Every time I write about that, I get, at least a dozen letters from people saying, I'd love the article. I'm not Jewish. My grandmother was Jewish, but I'm not Jewish. Or they say, I'm not Jewish, but my grandmother always lit candles on Friday night, and over and over. There's an ingathering of exiles. It's actually the purpose of the exile was to go out and collect the sparks of holiness that were lost. And they weren't just implanted in Jews. There's a lot of non-Jews out there who they're enormously holy people.
Yeah.
And to connect to them. I think that's what I'm trying to do, is to connect with these sparks of holiness that were lost, and to help them connect. I mean, that's why the how do I know that? I can't tell you another thing that is like, oh, I love Israel. I'm not Jewish. My grandmother was Jewish. That love Israel part, it's so illogical for a Christian to love Israel. It's so illogical. It goes against everything that the church taught for 2,000 years. If they love Israel, it's because something deep inside their soul is pushing them someplace that they shouldn't logically go. And that's I think, also part of the ingathering of the exiles. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I think that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And it is a beautiful thing. It is a God thing because it is bigger than any of us can understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so your novel, you talk a lot about the Golan.
Yeah.
What does that mean? How would you explain that to a Christian audience?
Okay, so you're going to have to help me here.
Yes.
I'll tell you why. I have an ongoing difficulty when I write my articles. Jews always talk about the Geulah. The Christians talk a lot more about Messiah.
Right.
For us, Geulah literally means redemption, to redeem. As a matter of fact, in the Torah, they usually talk about redeeming a field. We see that in Ruth and Boaz, where Boaz becomes the redeemer. He not because he redeems the nation, but because he redeemed the field that belonged to the family. So Geulah literally means to redeem. And when we talk about the final Geulah, there were three Geulahs. There's the Geulah from Egypt. There's the Geulah from Babylon. And now we're in the final Geulah, coming back from the long Geulah. So that's what I mean by Geulah, is the final redemption, which is what the Christians call, I think they call Messiah. I'm not really sure. And this is where I do a lot of dancing when I write, because I'll write redemption because that's what I mean as a Jew, though I might also want to say Messiah, but Messiah means something different for me than it does for Christians. And I'd rather not have that battle. I think it's too divisive. When I think essentially we're talking about something, if not the same, we're talking about the same event that we might be viewing differently. Like the ingathering of the exiles, the building of the temple, the reestablishment of the Davidic dynasty. I call that Geula. You would call, I don't know, what would you call that?
Well, knowing what I know now, I would agree with you that it's the redemption and the restoration of all Israel and the Messianic kingdom under Messiah, son of David. Now, I grew up as Southern Baptist and Presbyterian, very solid Christian background, believing family, as we would say it. But terms like salvation and redemption were not really understood very well. Terms like the Messianic kingdom, it was all conflated. So our thought is, well, Jesus is coming back and then everything's going to be fine and we'll all go to heaven. There's not a whole lot of emphasis on, well, there are still going to be people here. Israel and all the nations are still here in Messiah's kingdom. So how is it organized? How do we live? And I think this gets to where the Jewish concept of Messiah and Geolah, redemption, these are things Christians need to learn from, because you've been studying this, praying over it, meditating it for centuries. And though we would say, yeah, Jesus is the Messiah, we're focusing on one person, one identity, but we don't know exactly what does Messiah mean? What is Messiah to do? How do we live in the age of Messiah? This is
that's you see, that's our emphasis.
Yeah.
We kind of almost don't, I don't want to say we don't care who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have a two-stage process. The first process being Mashiach ben Yosef,
mm-hmm.
Messiah from the house of Yosef, which is a practical process of the ingathering of the exiles, the blossoming of the land. It's at least the beginning of the building of the temple. And it's not a person, it's a process. Right. And to be honest, many, many people think that we're well into it.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be hard to argue that we're not. And a lot of what we're seeing, first of all, it's straight up what the prophets wrote about. And second of all, 100 years ago, people would have thought you were nuts. Right. So we're living it, which is fairly amazing. I mean, Jerusalem, give me a break.
And the president of the United States a few years ago recognized Jerusalem as the capital of undivided Israel. So those of us on our little island here, we are all saying, finally.
And you have everyone outside of the island going, oh, we can't have that.
Exactly. I mean, the same thing as in 1948, when Harry Truman is recognizing the independence of the state of Israel, going against State Department, Defense Department, the international order, and being the first head of state to say, yes, I recognize the Jewish state. Those who have eyes to see and ears to hear recognize that's a miracle. That is God intervening and using a man to bring about his redemption.
Sure. And like it's the thing is, I'm so amazed at how often the other side is not even logical. Like we were talking about Jerusalem. They were always saying, I remember, Trump will recognize Jerusalem. It'll be war. He recognized Jerusalem. Nothing happened. Nothing. If anything, we had peace. That was after that we signed the Abraham Accords, which is real peace. Yeah. And I love watching the video of John Kerry saying there's no way you can have peace between any Arab country and Israel unless it includes the Palestinians. Sorry, we did it. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't make sense, but because they're not taking everything into account.
Yeah.
They're saying 1 + 1 is 2, and we're saying 1 + 1, God willing, is 2. Okay, and that's the X factor that they don't know to put in, and we're living it. So when I talk about Geula, there's that process, and it's happening, and you really need the eyes to see it.
Yes, you really do.
And for a lot of Jews, that means one thing. For Christians, it might mean something else. Unfortunately, that's, like I said, so many Jews, that you would think, you're an Orthodox Jew. You don't eat, you keep kosher, you keep Shabbos, you're making all these sacrifices, make another little sacrifice, move to Israel. No, 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 no. Why not? And for Christians, it means something else. They have to, and some Christians, thank God their eyes are open. And if they just read the Bible, especially if they learn a little bit of Hebrew, if they look at Israel, and if they see Israel as a real place, if they see like Jesus walked in the temple, you go to the Western Wall. Where did Jesus walk? On that plaza right up above it.
Exactly.
He was in and out of there all the time. He was really walking around places. He was doing things. He probably, looked a lot like me when I had the long payas and when I was a bit crazy. He looked like that. He was jumping into ice cold water like I used to do. And it's real water and it's a real place. And it's and when you realize that it's a real place, it just changes the rules. It really changes the rules. And I think that's what we're going through.
Exactly. Well, and I can speak personally to that. My second trip to Israel, when I'm standing on Elon Moreh and realize Abraham and Sarah were here. Lot was with them right there. And I'm looking out, there's Shechem, now Nablus today. And then there's the Mount of blessing, the Mount of cursing. It's right there. And I'm feeling, this is centuries of God's story, how he's working to redeem the whole earth. And he started with this family, this man, Abram, and his wife, Sarai. And look what has happened since.
It's so funny you say that. The exact same thing happened to me. I was 17 years old the first time I came to Israel. And we were on a trip to En-Gedi, which is right by the Dead Sea. And we had a non-religious tour guide. And we're standing on this plateau overlooking like the main part of the spring. And she's going off, all the details. This is where we are, the elevation, or actually the depression. It's a deep hole in the face of the earth. And she's going through it all. And then she says, and this is where King David stood. And I'm like, wait a second, what are you talking about? She's like, King David. I'm like, are you talking about Psalms and, Goliath and David? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean he stood here? She said, well, it says in the Bible that he was camped out overlooking King Saul. And if you look around, this is the only plateau that you can see the spring from. And it hit me that this small plateau, one time King David was shuffling around on the very same rocks. And there I was. And that kind of blew my mind. And then when the first time I went to the Western Wall and I'm looking at the rocks, I mean, since I was a little kid, if I sat down, I'm sure I could unconsciously draw every single rock there. My people have been dreaming about that wall for 2,000 years. Actually, we've been dreaming about on top. I had an even more intense experience when I went up to the Temple Mount, where I could literally see the holiness glowing. And but the fact that, we're talking King Solomon. I remember I was driving with the guy past the Dead Sea, and there are sinkholes on the Dead Sea is dropping because the Dead Sea works. And there's sinkholes that are forming, and it's filling up with brackish water. And it's filling up with fish. And there's actually a nature reserve on the shore of the Dead Sea I think you can't go in there. You need special permission. And it really looks like the Garden of Eden. It's so beautiful. And I'm like, that's the prophecy. And I was talking to this wonderful, lovely Christian man, and we're driving past it. And I talked about that. And he's like, no, you don't understand. When the Bible and the prophets talk about fish in the Dead Sea, they're talking about, Christians and going out and fishing, and the church fishing for souls. And I'm like, you're looking right at it. It's right. We're driving past it.
Yeah.
You're driving right past the prophecy unfolding in front of your eyes. Can't you see it? When you walk into Jerusalem, you're walking on prophecy. You're in the you're riding a bus. You see old people sitting there. You see kids playing in the streets. We're living the prophecy. Don't tell me it's an allegory. It's real, exactly as written, and we're living it.
And at this point, I want to say about your work for Israel 365. That's what you write about.
On good days.
No, I remember one article you wrote a few years ago about just that, life coming back to the Dead Sea. Ezekiel wrote about that in the last 3 chapters of the vision he had.
So yeah, there was recently another story. The eastern wall, the eastern retaining wall of the Temple Mount is there's a hill that it goes down. There's a hill right next to it, and then there's a major road that goes around the old city. And someone sent me a photo that the thorn bushes that grow in between the stones form the Hebrew letters Yud, He, Vav.
Oh,
The first 3 letters of the Tetragrammaton, God's name, and it was starting to form the last He.
huh?
And I looked at it and I'm like, no, that can't be. It's like it's a major road. So I had someone. I live in the Golan, so I couldn't run down and check it out. So I had someone go check it out, and he's like, I live here. It isn't. Okay. And I'm like, just do me a favor, go check it out. I mean, I can't, if someone did Photoshop, okay, it's Photoshop. And I'll write that. I'll say it didn't happen. But if it happened, I want to know about it. And he went and he called me up and he's like, oh my goodness. And I had at least 2 other journalists contact me and say, no. And I'm like, go check it out. And then they got back to me, oh my goodness. Right on a major road, thousands of people driving past, or hundreds every hour. One of the major roads that in the old city, going past in the old city in Jerusalem, the name of God is being formed on a wall by bushes, and no one saw. No one saw.
That's just one of many signs and the things that are happening if you've got eyes to see and ears to hear.
Yeah.
Well, let me go back to Master Return. This is what you write about. You're writing about the Golan, and you're writing about this crazy group of Jews in Israel who actually believe the promises and believe that there are some on the Christian side who might be partners in this. But you also write a very, very human story about the opposition you face.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, you mean the Arabs, or?
Well, not just the Arabs.
Because I don't see them as opposition.
I understand. And, I appreciate what you write in the book of how you are, and even in your forward or your introduction.
Okay.
You do not hate the Arabs. You don't hate the Palestinians.
God forbid. God forbid. Absolutely not.
Let me just go a little side note here. What is your hope? If all things could be set in order, what is your hope for relationship of Jewish people and Arab people in the Holy Land of Israel?
There's no reason we can't be together. There's you have to, any person who lives in the land of Israel, Jew or Gentile, has to keep the Noahide laws. And one of the Noahide laws is don't murder. And if they, and I heard was it Rav Shmuel Eliyahu, or it was a Sephardi rabbi, a big Sephardi rabbi, and they misunderstood. They twisted what he said, which was such a shame. But he was saying, Israel is, you never read in the Bible about Israel being just for the Jews. There's a thing about the ownership of the land, and there is a delicate balance. But I think the big problem with, for example, with the Temple Mount is not that the Arabs are up there. The big problem is that only the Arabs can pray there, because it really has to be. It's almost as if, well, I mean, other than the fact that it's the nature of Islam, it has to be a house of prayer for all nations.
Yeah.
So we're not saying only us. We're saying open up the doors. Open up the doors. It's funny. Rav Pesach Lilicki, he said, you think that when the third temple comes, that you're gonna, go to Jerusalem and you're gonna go buy your goat or your sheep or your bull and go up to the Temple Mount and go to the Kohen and you're done. He's like, no. He's like, you're going to go to Jerusalem with your goat, and then you're going to see your buddy Al McCarn.
Yeah. And
Al's going to be, Eliyahu, I'm so glad I bumped into you. I want to bring a Thanksgiving offering. Could you take it up to the Kohen for me? I'll be like, Al, of course I will. So I have my goat. Now I have your goat. And then I start walking up and someone's like, Al, is that guy a Jew? And you'll be like, yeah. And they'll be like, your name is Eliyahu. Here, take this for me too. And I'll be like going up to the Temple Mount with like 100 sacrifices that I'm taking up for all of the nations that are so happy to be serving Hashem. You know, and it's not everyone being Jewish. It's everyone being happy in the house of God.
Yeah.
And Judaism never proselytized. We never wanted to convert. And that's not what the temple is about. The temple is about us serving the world, us connecting the world to God. And if that's our job, there's going to be a lot of people crowding around every single Jew because there's not so many of us.
No, that's exactly what, I mean, you have just spoken what Zechariah said, of there'll be 10 from the nations who come take hold of the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you. We've heard the Lord is with you. That is such a beautiful picture you've just painted for us.
Yeah. I'm not claiming to be the first to say it. Okay.
No, but it is a house of prayer for all nations. That's what Isaiah said. And by the way, that's what Jesus said. So,
I'm sure. I mean, well, I'm sure he also picked it up from Zechariah.
Yes, actually. Yes. Yeah, he was quoting the prophets.
Yeah, because I mean, isn't that the real image of a house of God?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, and that's, I think, I mean, that doesn't surprise me that's really, I mean, if you ask a Christian, that's what he wants. It's kind of like, how can I was never really thrilled with synagogues. It's just like, you know, okay, we're all saying the same thing. I'd rather go someplace and meet some really sweet people, you know, like, okay, they're not all the same. And we can all pray together, you know, why not? Why not? We're not all the same. We're not all the same religion, and it doesn't have to be all the time. But you know, come the festival, the Feast of the Booths, come Sukkot, you know, the Feast of the Tabernacles. That's when all the nations came up, and the last day of Sukkot, what we call Shmini Atzeret, which has come to be Simchat Torah, when we dance with the Torah. That's actually when only the Jews, and after the whole world comes up, we have our own special day with God. But you first have those 6 days where we bring up a total of 70 bulls offerings total for all of Sukkot, because that's the 70 nations. It's really where everyone comes to celebrate God. And I mean, why would I want any other image of, you know, peace between the Arabs and the Jews, anything other than that? That's a pretty beautiful image, I mean, God willing.
It is.
And you know something? That's also the antithesis of the two-state solution. I don't want a line drawn with them over there and us over there. We were getting close to it. We were getting really close to it before the Oslo Accords. You know, we would go into the Arab villages to get our cars fixed because they made the best hummus and pizza. And God willing, that's where we're headed now. God willing.
Yes, I would agree. I'll pray with you for that. Now, you mentioned other opposition. In fact, when you're writing about your first meeting, Tuli and Rivka, well, Sefi and Hannah in the book, there are two detractors. We don't call them enemies. We don't hate them, but they are people who are opposing what you're doing, reaching out to Christians and, you know, writing about biblical prophecy and things. The secular Israeli left.
Yes, which is insane.
Yes. Why is that? I mean, why is it insane? Why are they opposing?
Well, I'll tell you. And you know, so Hayovel gets it the worst. Hayovel, for those who don't know, they're really devout evangelical Christians. They are on Har Bracha, and they bring over Christian volunteers to volunteer in the vineyards of Har Bracha, the Mount of Blessing. And Haaretz they're so left-wing that they're anti-Israel as a media. They're not popular in Israel at all. They can claim to be pro-Palestinian, but the Palestinians hate them. But they're ultra left-wing. They're like Israel's version of the woke. And they hate Hayovel. They hate them. Which for me doesn't make sense, because you think that, the left wing, they're into pluralism and acceptance and hope. But pluralism because this connecting to Christians is not interfaith.
Mm.
What we're doing is not interfaith, because interfaith is based on, oh, we're all the same.
Mm.
But what we're doing, Al, you and I, is I sit in a room with you. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I need to serve God better.
Yes.
Can you help me? And you're like, I'm a devout Christian. I love Jesus. Can you help me? And so we help each other. And I walk away a better Jew, and you walk away a better Christian.
Yes.
And that is not interfaith. That is absolutely not interfaith. So it's kind of like, you would think that the left-wing would be very into, the left-wing secular would be very into pluralism, but they're not. They're really, really not. And part of the reason is, I think a big bulk of the reason is, Hayovel, they believe in God. They believe in the Bible. And they can't have that. If they want to, they want to say, why is there Israel? Oh, because of the Holocaust, because of whatever reasons they have. Okay, but the Balfour Declaration came before the Holocaust. Christians wanted the Jews in Israel, and it had nothing to do with the Holocaust.
Right.
Hayovel says, what's the solution? Well, we're talking about Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland. And they're like, what do you mean biblical heartland? It's, Palestinian territory for 5,000 years. Okay. And it's like, well, what about archaeology? No, you don't understand. So the left wing absolutely hates. And when Hayovel goes up to the Temple Mount, the Arabs hate them more than they hate me. They hate when I go up. They'll stop them from praying before they'll stop me from praying. Because they believe in holiness. They believe in the holiness of Israel. They believe in the God of Israel. They believe in the Bible. And that's the biggest threat to the Arabs. It's the biggest threat to the secular left wing. So the other threat, the other people who don't like what I do, there's a type of Orthodox Jews who, and it really boils down to one question. You ask them one question. Do you believe that a Jew and a Christian can have a meaningful relationship without one trying to convert the other? And if they say no, well, then they will object to what I'm doing. And I can understand them because it's based in history. But the major change is, that's only true for the exile. When Jews lived in the exile, we necessarily had to build walls. Right. We had to remain separate. It was just, the Christian culture was too pervasive, too much of a majority. It was dangerous. The only way Jews and Judaism and Torah could have survived is by building these walls. But now that I'm a Jew in Israel, what am I afraid of? That my grandchildren are going to be Christian? It's not going to happen. I wonder tell me, what's it like? You're a Christian, you come to Israel, and 90% of the people you meet on the street are Jewish. Where else does that happen? That's crazy.
Not even Brooklyn.
Not even Brooklyn. And even in Brooklyn, it's a bubble, and they know it's a bubble. But missionaries in Israel, I'll tell you, missionaries in Israel, I hate to say this, but I used to laugh at them. Because I'm like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to convert Israelis. The only ones you're going to get are the, fringe people who are going through a hard time or whatever. But Christmas comes and goes, and I don't feel it. There's no Christmas decorations. You don't get a day off at work. It doesn't happen. New Year's Eve, the same thing. Yeah. New Year's Eve, the same thing. But go try to get a pizza on Passover. You can't do it.
Right.
There's a big, even the seculars, what they do on Yom Kippur is they go bike riding on the highways because no one drives. Okay, this is a Jewish state, so I'm not in danger. No one's going to convert. But to be really honest, I've gotten much more anti-missionary recently, and it's not because I feel threatened. It's because they are what's keeping Jews and Christians apart. When these Orthodox Jews say you can't connect with Christians because they're trying to convert you, they point at the missionaries, and they're right. Yeah. But what they don't do is they don't point at my friend Al. Because they don't know you. They don't point it at all my other friends who are Christian people, who I think if I converted to Christianity and accepted Jesus, you might be a little sad. You know?
Well,
you can be honest. You can be honest, dude.
That's a very complicated question.
I'm sure it is.
I mean, we've already covered it in this conversation where this is Al's view of the subject. We Christians, we understand and accept that the identity of Messiah is Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua of Nazareth. And that has opened the way for us to come into relationship with the Almighty, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, so there's this Jewish guy who lived in the first century. I happen to believe he's Messiah and he's the way he's brought me in. But I don't understand the concept of Messiah and the process of Messiah, which you have just explained.
So let me tell you something. I had this epiphany, which doesn't happen too often. When I was reading the New Testament, I was learning with some also Tommy Waller was there. We were learning the New Testament. We were learning about Jesus going to Jerusalem for Passover. And for me, a religious Jew goes to Jerusalem before Passover. He's going there to bring his Passover offering. He's going to go to the temple. And the way you do it is you don't, not everyone brings the Passover offering. You get together as a group before Passover, and you designate one person to take the lamb to the temple, and he does it, and then he brings it back, and then you roast it as a group, and everyone gets a little piece of it. Okay. And the Passover Seder, as we do it today, is pretty much based on that. And we were studying it, and there's a part of the Seder where you open up the door, your front door, and you also say something very strange, which is, everyone who's hungry, come in and eat, which is actually forbidden, because the only people who are permitted to partake of the Passover sacrifice are the people who arranged before Passover to be together. So you can't open up your door and say, oh, there's a guy who's hungry, come on in. You can't do that. The only people who can come in, who are the only people who can partake of the Passover sacrifice, are the people who arranged beforehand. So what's that opening up the door? And I realized that, okay, when the third temple is built, I'm a Jew. I'm required to go bring a sacrifice, bring it back to my hotel room, and have my Passover sacrifice with my family, whoever guests arranged beforehand. And I realized that one of the last things Jesus did was he arranged for a Passover sacrifice. So he's like saving your seat at the table.
Yeah.
So you can be at the table with me. So he's, and I mean, in more than just the Passover sacrifice, in so many ways, he was, I mean, it's amazing that Christians connected with a Jew. So your pathway into connecting with me, not into Judaism, not into being a Jew, the Christians, their pathway to connect with Torah is through Jesus. It's not my pathway. I don't need that. I'm a Jew. I'm already at the Seder. I'm already in the Torah. I already have an inheritance in the land of Israel. But for someone who's outside, how does he come in? And I realized he saved you a place at the table. I hope that, I mean that in the very sweetest way. And that's what's very special about Christianity. Is that their pathway to God is through a Jew. That's like, whoa.
I'm also thinking that we don't have the full story yet. There were
true.
Which is why this path that I would say we pioneers, those of us on this little island, this path that we're walking out tentatively and just feeling our way together, it's an ultimate journey of faith, because we have to take what we have come to know as true in our backgrounds and our studies, and we have to say, it's not wrong, but there's more to the story, and I'm seeing something in my brother here that helps me get the outlines of that other part of the story.
Yeah, what's a leap of faith? Everyone thinks a leap of faith is like you're sitting on this like pillar that's 100 feet in the air, and you see another pillar, and it's like 20 feet away, and you have to jump to. A leap of faith is when you don't even see that second pillar and you jump anyway, and that's what we're doing. And we're and then you're trying to figure it out when you're halfway through in the air, and you're like, oh my gosh, where am I going to land? Where's this leading? And we are, and I'm making a lot of mistakes, and I'm getting a lot of people angry at me, and I'm sure you are as well, because you're an Ish Emet, you're a man of truth, and it's not easy. My methodology is I'm very rarely what we call in Hebrew a kanai, a zealot. There aren't too many things that I'm zealous about. I try to see every person as having their path to Hashem. I'm not always so successful, but there's so many people. There's this beautiful expression in Chassidut. It says, many ships cross the ocean and they can't follow each other because they don't leave trails. We're all going across the ocean, and we all got to find our way. We're all coming from different parts. The one thing is, I think we're all headed, maybe we're not all headed for the same place. I don't know. But we're certainly not following the same paths. That's for sure.
No, and in fact, there's only one master of return, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Eliyahu Berkowitz, it has been such a joy to talk with you, to hear a little bit about your new novel, The Master of Return and the 11th Light. And I give you a lot of credit for a lot of things, but this has been a very interesting interview, because every interview I've always done, they always ask me about the episode with my wife. Yes. And you're the first person who didn't, which I think is because you saw that it was there. Yes. And that is actually precisely the way it happened. Yes. And it's a pretty amazing story. But I mean, the whole book is amazing stories. The whole book is amazing people. Yes. And I think you're absolutely there's so much more there. It's really describing a process of this geula that we're working towards, which is a huge thing. So I give you a lot of credit for catching that. I'm so pleased that you read the book and you got it. You really got it. As an author, that's a beautiful experience. I really appreciate it. I'm taking it in. I'm feeling it. Oh, good. Well, here's another author point. The way you ended the book, I can see where you could do a sequel. Do you have that in planning or thinking of it? I never want to do sequels. And it's just kind of like, if I wrote it, I did it, I'd done it. But something, a lot of people have asked me for it. First of all, the problem is it's autobiographical. Yes. So I haven't lived it yet. Though, if anything, I'll tell you, for example, with Hope Merchant, I wouldn't do a sequel, but I might do a prequel. Yes. If I did another Hope Merchant, I would do a story, and I have an idea. I've started working on it, of Theo's father. Mm-hmm. How do you become the father of a miracle worker? Yeah. That's kind of compelling for me. If I did, I might not do a sequel to Master of Return. I might do a prequel. And if I did, it would have cows in it. But, okay, those of us who know you a little bit and know your story will catch the reference. So. Cows, motorcycles, and tractors. Yeah. and guns and medic stuff and everything. Yeah. It's all there. And it might even have a bit of French cuisine. You never know. Sounds good. All right, where do we get the book? Okay. The book can be gotten on root-source is the website. I guess I'll send you the link. Or you can get it on Amazon. It's the Hope Merchant. I'm sorry, not the Hope Merchant. The Hope Merchant is also there. Yes, it is. It just go to Amazon, The Master of Return and the 11th Light by Eliyahu Berkowitz. I also, I really encourage people to connect with me on social media. Eliyahu Berkowitz on Facebook. I love new friends. So, well, thanks for sharing a little bit of your thoughts and of your heart. And I pray the book does well. Al, you're awesome. I really like you. I really like you. This was great. Yes. This was really great. Thank you.